All right. Ooh, that's loud. Good evening, everybody. Um, Welcome to the April 20th Resiliency Advisory Committee meeting. I call the meeting to order at 6:01 p.m. I will do a quick roll call to confirm member attendance. When I call your name, please say present. We have these microphones. They are quite loud, but we're also sharing them. Chair Lardy is present, Vice Chair Meyer,
Present.
Secretary Garrett, Board Member Gong, Board
Present.
Member Harris,
Present.
Board Member Morgan, Board Member Jones, Board Member Clampett. Present. I will push this further away from me and hopefully that's a little better. We will proceed with the land acknowledgement. The Resiliency Advisory Board acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Kumeyaay, Luiseno, Cupino, and Kuya tribes. Today, the Kumeyaay people continue to maintain their political sovereignty and cultural traditions as vital members of the San Diego community. We are honored to share this space with them, and we thank them for their stewardship. Before we move on, I want to review the instructions for providing public comment at today's meeting. For those attending the meeting in person, if you wish to address the board on items for today's agenda, please complete and submit a speaker form or the board hears the agenda item. You'll be called at the time the item is heard. Speaker forms are in the back table by the entrance. You may also address the board on any matter not listed on today's agenda. Please complete and submit a speaker form. However, California's open meeting laws do not permit the board to discuss or take any action on non-agenda matters at today's meeting. The board may add the item to a future meeting agenda or refer the matter to staff or a committee. For those attending remotely, when the item you'd like to comment on is introduced, or when it is time for non-agenda public comment, please raise your hand by either tapping the raise your hand button on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or by dialing 9 on your phone. When it is your turn to speak, click the unmute prompt that will appear on your computer, tablet, or smartphone, or dial *6. There will be a 2-minute limit per commenter. All right, and then for item number 3, adoption modification of agenda items. Interested in the committee if there's any other suggestions. My suggestion is to move the non-agenda item, public comment item number 6 until after item number 8. That way the non-agenda public commenters will have had the benefit of hearing our presentation on the Resiliency Advisory Board, as well as we'd have the community listening session prior to that, which might overlap with some of the public commenters. Okay.
Motion.
I think I need a motion in a second on that.
I motion to move the non-agenda public comment until after item E.
Thank you. Is there a second? Board Member Harris. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand accordingly. All right, that passes unanimously. We will now move on to agenda item number 4, announcements from city staff and board members. Talking with Julia before the meeting, she does not have any announcements. Are there any board member announcements?
I'd like to wish everybody a happy Earth Day.
All right. Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 5. The draft minutes for the previous March 19th meeting are attached. Are there any corrections, modifications, or motions? Board Member Morgan.
Yes, I have no comments on the motion. I mean, on the minutes, with the exception that the quarry issue and how we respond to that, I hope we'll be coming back to this board at another time.
So are you questioning how they're reflected in the minutes, or do you want an update on, when we'll be bringing that back?
It was brought to our attention in non-agenda comment that there were some issues, with regard to the quarry situation out there. I think that it's prudent for this board to take action of some sort, and I don't know what that action might be. I would just like to refer it to either the chair or the staff to come back to us with what an appropriate step for us would be, to not leave that hanging.
Yes, I agree. I'll just say that I have had some correspondence with Julia on that to determine really if it's appropriate to add to our next agenda item, or if it's something that we can report out on. And so we wanted to not have that on this agenda item just because we have other things going on, but potentially consider it in May. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes themselves? Is there a motion for consideration of the minutes?
I'll motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Motion by Board Member Gong. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, second by Vice Chair. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. Thank you. The minutes are passed unanimously. Okay, we are moving non-agenda public comment. And we have no unfinished business items on the agenda. I do not mind. I think we can go ahead and do that. If I could just ask that after your public comment, if you could submit a speaker slip. No, but you go ahead and we'll make your public comment. If you could fill out and just submit a speaker slip afterwards. We do, because then it's projected on the microphone. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for speaking up and asking for that. I will work to improve our coordination. I think we were a little restricted by when the room was available, but we'll work on that for future meetings. Okay, so yes. For any of those watching now or in the future, our normal meeting is scheduled. It's included in our work program, which is on the city's website. Most of our meetings are at the City Hall complex, but they all are also hybrid meetings. We also look to continue to improve hybrid meetings and potentially do other meetings in the future. So feel free to sign up for updates and go ahead and reach out to us if you have any questions. So we do not have any unfinished business, so we'll move on to our information items. beginning with the Resiliency Advisory Board overview by our Vice Chair.
Chair, I had a comment on a public comment, if that's possible.
Yes.
Given the point of the speaker meeting, it would make sense to table some of this discussion until a more time for the community, if that is the goal of holding.
I guess I'd probably consider that if we wanted to include that as agenda item modifications. I think I'd open up to board member conversation if there's any comments or questions related to that.
Would it be appropriate for me to make a motion once we get to that item? I'm trying to keep track here.
I guess which item were you specifically requesting to table? Would be my clarification question back.
Item 8A, if the folks from the Choice Blue Green Collaborative Organization would like to give a truncated presentation, that would be very helpful for us to help us prepare for a larger community meeting. But out of consideration and respect for the community, that is my suggestion.
Okay. I guess my thoughts would be that we're here and that I think our advisory board overview is not a very long presentation. It would be good to go through, because we're also being recorded. I think we can work with the city and improve on coordination with other committees that are in the area. I think we're not aware of every committee in the city as volunteers, and we do not have a board member that represents this community. So that's probably part of the reason for the conflict. But I think since we are all here, I'd recommend we at least go through those that we prepared for, and then take any public testimony we have on any of them.
People who get you up, making them presenting the agenda.
So I guess now would be the time to make a motion of continuance, if you'd like to request continuance of any of these items.
Yes, I hope that we continue item 8A, and we as well as item 8C. Apologies, I combined the two of them.
Okay.
And I'm certain there's a way to check if anyone online is from the community.
Okay. So we have a motion on item to continue items 8A and items 8C. Do we have a second?
Does that include item 8B, because our speakers are here to time out of their day?
I mentioned just item A and C.
Okay. So no change to the agenda.
To continue items 8A and 8C to time that is more convenient for the community, which we can work on.
So you don't want to address 8A or C today? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. I mean, we could verify with the folks who are online, but the question is if there's anyone online, myself, who is from the community, the question is, would they prefer to give a short statement now and then await a longer so they can participate with their fellow community members? I'll defer to anyone online who's from the community.
What I'd recommend is, what I'd recommend as a point of order is, let's see if there's a second on the motion. And if there is, I think we'll have discussion. And then as part of that, I would request any public comment on that motion, just because we are in discussion items and ask from there's at least 2 community members logged in.
I think that you have some fair points, board member Harris. I think that it's imperative that we have community members who are interested in attending our meetings be here, but I don't think that we should detract from the fact that we do have few speakers who are from the Choice Creek community as well, who may have thoughts and as well as these two potential, community members here. My recommendation would be to keep the items and then maybe host another special meeting here another time, in the future. But
Thank you. Any more comments, or do we have a second on the motion?
Just a thought, maybe we take the presentations out of order, out of respect for these gentlemen's time. And then kind of measure the room, we could see like who's here, who's online, and then see if we take up items A and C. Just another thought to maximize the time.
Okay.
Just throwing it out there.
I think procedurally, we do have a motion on the floor, so we should either withdraw that or change it or take action on it. So
If it,
is it respective to the motion on the floor?
It's a comment. I do not wish to second the motion on the floor. And I'm just finding it really regrettable that we are in this situation. We didn't anticipate a conflict with the local planning organization. That seems really unfortunate to me. I would want to hear their presentation in whatever detail they feel able to present tonight. It would also be very helpful to know how many people we have online. I can't really tell from what's showing.
I'll comment. It looks like there are 3 members of the public that are online. And none of them have raised their hands. I would probably recommend that we do move forward to 8B and then evaluate time and participation based upon that item. Just for a comment, I'm not in support of the motion to continue. I think we are here. I would be in support of doing additional outreach and additional community member meetings. I think given that we are volunteers and we don't have a large staff dedicated to us, I think it's an unfortunate but understandable situation that we're in.
I'd be fine if, the motion fails for lack of a second, someone else can, move, a reworded one. I would say that as part of outreach, it's typical to reach out to the heads of the recognized community groups. So we should highlight that moving forward.
Okay, understand. So we've got an opportunity, the motion will fail for a lack of a second. Procedurally, Board Member Clampett, would you be interested in making a motion to re-agenda order it since that was your idea?
I have to be careful in my current role, what kind of motions I can make or not make.
Okay,
So if someone else wants to tee up the motion that I kind of laid out, that would be fine.
okay, I'll just say, in order to move us on and get to the presenter, I'll make a motion to move item 8B as the first item in information. Do we have a second? Okay, Board Member Gong second, all in favor? Okay. Well, you didn't vote. I didn't vote for it, yeah. Okay, I guess all opposed or abstaining? Okay, opposed? I didn't see.
I'm abstaining.
Abstain, okay. So that motion does pass with 6 voting for it. So with that, we will invite up Thad from Groundworks and Ozzy Menzies as well from Groundworks. If you could come up, go to the podium and do your introductions. We pull it up. And I'd recommend everyone else turning off your mics so there's no feedback.
Check, check. Coming in hot. Okay. Hello, everybody. Nice to see and meet all of you, or meet many of you. My name is Thad Winkle. I'm the Deputy Director of Groundwork San Diego. I'm here with my colleague, Ozzy Meneses. He's the Director of Community Projects and Partnerships at Groundwork. We were invited to come tonight to share a bit about the work that we're doing in the Choice Creek watershed, which we are all gathered within this evening. I wanted to start just by doing a high-level overview of the work that Groundwork does. We're a team of about 10 people and are doing a pretty incredible amount of work, and it's hard to sort of synthesize in 60 seconds, but basically our work falls into sort of 3 different categories. We do a lot related to climate science education. This is really rooted in our 4.5-acre outdoor learning space that we call the Earth Lab. This is at Millennial Tech Middle School, sort of just down the street, maybe about a mile away from where we are. That involves anywhere from 1,500 to 3,000 students over the course of the year coming to learn during anything from a one-day field trip to our high school internship that is a year-long program that goes obviously into a much greater level of depth. The second category of work that we do is what we call climate safe neighborhoods. This is a variety of different community empowerment and direct benefit programs. So we have a community forestry program that is planting around 250 trees a year, and we're training residents how to take care of their trees and giving them the tools that they need. Our colleague Ramon, who's the leader of that, is going to be awarded in about later this week, I think, as the City of San Diego Urban Forestry Community Champion. So we're very proud of that program, but we also do something that we call our resident empowerment training, which I'll come back to, really trying to help residents understand where they live and understand how they can help contribute to making their communities a better place. And then the third category of work is actually doing blue-green infrastructure. And so Groundwork leads the planning, the design, and the implementation of actual infrastructure projects on city-owned assets. And that's what I'm going to focus on tonight. I was told in resident empowerment, the foundation of everything we do. I was told to frame this for a wide variety of experience levels. The first time I was asked to give a presentation like this, they were like, oh, it's introductory stuff, assume people don't know anything. And then I got there and the people were like, oh, I'm a traffic engineer, I'm a hydrologist. And so I like to set the expectation up front that some of this may be a bit obvious, or it may be new if this is a new way of thinking for you. I wanted to start out just sort of talking at the highest level about what a watershed is. A watershed is an area where all of the water in that area drains to a single location. So you can see from some of these images, all of the water that falls on the hillsides eventually runs down into the creek below. So it's a bit of a misnomer. People oftentimes refer to Choyas Creek itself as a watershed, but the watershed is the area all around Choyas Creek that drains into the creek. This is a map of Choyas Creek. We are at the triangle. You can see Balboa Park is always kind of my orientation point. So we are in southeast and eastern San Diego, and it covers about 22 to 25 square miles. There's about 300,000 residents. It goes from Lemon Grove and La Mesa down to the Bay in Barrio Logan. I like this image because it, again, sort of illustrates the idea of a watershed and the arrows representing how water flows. And it really demonstrates, I think you can sort of conceptualize how the further down you get in the watershed, the more that all of this water is accumulating, which becomes really relevant for conversations about things like flooding. Touching really somewhat briefly on the history of where we are, I like to start with some images that sort of show the development of the watershed, which I think helps to illustrate some of the current conditions that we're in today. And so starting already with the colonization of the coast, this is the watershed map superimposed into one of the earliest maps we have of San Diego, where it's quite open and it was actually an entire floodplain down at the base of the watershed. And over time, we started to have urbanization where we start to see more development building out. Until then, when we go back to that initial image I had shown, now you can see a lot of gray, right? And this starts to demonstrate where things like, sorry, I'm realizing there's a delay between the computer and the screen. I got to look at the screen. this is where some of the social and political issues start to intersect more with the history of the watershed. And so these are actual redlining maps. Redlining was a systemic form of discrimination, which affected people of color, and it was a way that banks did not invest in certain communities and invested in other communities. And so you see that they literally drew red lines around certain communities, which in this case correlate really significantly with the Choyas Creek watershed. Here's again the actual redlining maps on the watershed, superimposed on the watershed. And then all of this correlates with environmental risks today. We sort of jokingly refer to this as our mushroom map, but this was a number of different indexes that we pulled together to help illustrate issues related to air quality, heat, and flood risk. And the darker the color, the more the risks are. And but it demonstrates just generally some of the flooding and heat and air quality risks that are some of the biggest concerns for residents in our watershed. One of the other critical pieces of urbanization that's really significant for our watershed, and this is significant for other watersheds too, was paving over the creek. So starting in the 1930s, the Army Corps of Engineers throughout Southern California started paving over creeks. Of course, the LA River is the most sort of iconic example of this, as you see car chases through it in movies and things like that. But the basic rationale then was, how do we speed water up and get it out of our communities? And so this is why now you see waterways through our canyons as perfectly straight lines, whereas natural waterways, right, sort of go back and forth. And you can see just sort of the grand scale with this person in it, and notice it obviously as you drive around San Diego. But all of this then leads to situations like January 22nd, 2024, which I assume many of us are familiar with what happened on that day. But with climate change, we have longer periods of drought followed by more extreme rain. And so all of these sort of factors end up leading to greater flooding. And this sort of speed the water up and get it out of our community solution doesn't have the capacity to withstand the current environmental realities. This flood, again, I don't know if I need to restate some of the impacts, but dislocated thousands of people. We still meet some residents who are staying with friends or with cousins or aunts because they haven't been able to repair their homes, particularly down in South Crest. But just some more images of the impacts of that flood. One of the sort of emerging strategies for thinking about environmental issues is something called blue-green infrastructure. And so this is what we want to spend the rest of our time sharing about. And blue-green infrastructure at the highest level is basically nature-based solutions that are multi-benefit solutions to some of these environmental issues. So we want to move away from saying we have flooding issues. So what do we do to just solve flooding? We have heat issues. What do we do to just solve heat? But instead, blue-green infrastructure becomes a way to solve sort of a whole package of issues that we have by utilizing these nature-based solutions. And Ozzy is going to share a bit about some of the actual typologies that help to, I think, clarify sort of what we're talking about.
All right. Hello, everyone. So as Thad mentioned, we're going to go over the typologies. What that means is different categories of projects or features that can be applied to in the community, in the watershed. So we've worked through a lot of these. I just want to quickly mention that what we do at Groundwork is a community-driven approach. We actually interact directly with the community members. So part of this is actually showing people, educating. Part of our resident empowerment training that mentioned is these types of typologies. So the first one is green streets. You can see a lot of these kind of evidence throughout San Diego. The city of La Mesa does a lot of this as well. So we focus on what this means, more trees. You see there's a lot of like main benefits as well as secondary benefits to these typologies. Next one, we're scrolling through them. This is going to be the quick version. Stormwater medians. So you'll see this actually in the city of La Mesa as soon as you cross University Avenue, El Cajon, and then you'll see that these stormwater medians are able to capture the stormwater in the center. It helps with flood resilience. They also are able to clean the water.
And then for us, the more you do these upstream, the more it helps with the downstream flooding. Another typology is green alleys, and later on we'll talk about some of the projects that we're currently working on and implementing. Webster Green Alley is one of the ones that we're currently working on with the city of San Diego to actually implement this, where we take either currently underused space or is just dirt, it's prone to flooding, and we implement some of these typologies. Next one is floodable parks. That will go over another project that we're working on currently. So this is a park that is purposely built in the floodplain at a lower elevation than normal, so that this park is actually built to flood and take in flood waters and even clean some of that flood water so that the adjacent residences and buildings and businesses don't flood themselves. Green Schoolyards is another partnership that we're working with some partners to implement some of these previous typologies that we mentioned and their versions of blue and green in actual schoolyards that may right now be just blacktop, like heat inducing, surfaces. And another one is the Trailhead Pocket Park, where we have opportunities where right now it may just not just be like a sidewalk or like this right here, the street that just ends, that create a pocket park that also is blue and green infrastructure focused. Every time we say blue and green, blue is flooding, green is everything that has to do with plants, trees, and things like that. And another big one is stream restoration. So as Thad mentioned, the channelization of the creek, where it was just basically concreted over, where we go in and restore the stream. We have another project that we're mentioning right now later that we're working on. It actually restores it to more its natural state, and it creates more of a meandering effect that actually helps with flooding, especially downstream flooding. Now that will chat about the places of opportunity.
So I think one of the things that the typologies really illustrate is moving away from this strategy that the Army Corps of Engineers had starting in the 30s, where we're trying to speed water up and get it out of our communities, and now start to think of our communities more like sponges. How are we slowing water down and giving it safe places to go, which can help with things like flooding, but then in the process allows our communities to sustain things like vegetation because the water is sticking around long enough and going into the ground. So this is the exciting part where we're talking about actual projects that we're working on in the watershed. Our flagship project is what we call the Federal Boulevard Creek Dechannelization Trail and Pocket Park Project. You'd think we would have come up with a little bit more concise name for it, but the title really sort of captures every component of it. So this is about a half-a-mile stretch of Federal Boulevard in between the 805 on the right and Home Avenue on the left, and it's the 94 freeway on the bottom. If you're familiar with the area, this is sort of the triangle in between the 805 and the 15 and the 94, the Fairmount neighborhood. In this project, right now, it's a fully channelized portion of the creek, as we described earlier. Here are pictures from the site down inside of the creek. And the current plan, we're going to be breaking ground in the next 1 or 2 months, depending on when we can get the mayor to commit to come to the press conference. But we're fully permitted and ready to build an $11 million creek restoration project where we'll actually be removing a half-a mile of concrete, restoring it to a natural waterway, and it becomes this sort of stream bed bioengineering project that gives water safe places to go. It'll be widening the channel. And I wish I had included the picture of how the floodplain is affected, but right now the floodplain goes up into these buildings that are up here, and it's going to be reduced down to super narrow by this project. It's really interesting to see the hydrology and how it'll be affected by this. This is, like I said, an $11 million project. It includes a trail and pocket park as well. This was all fully funded and ready to go 2 years ago. Because of inflation, the price tag went up another $3 million. And so the last 2 years, we've tried to get the money, but finally have decided to start with phase 1 and do the creek. So we're still hoping to do the trail and the pocket park as a phase 2 as soon as we can get some of that funding that we need. But this is what at the end sort of triangular portion, there will be a pocket park that will be a nice stop for bikers who are passing through and some sitting areas and lots of trees. I think there's at least 300 trees going in here, probably more than that on the trail too. And this is a map of the location, and I like to, again, go back to this image to start thinking about how these interventions are slowing water down and have effects downstream from where they're happening. So that's one project we're working on. We're basically doing the exact same scope of work around the Jackie Robinson YMCA, which is on Imperial Avenue at the 805. And this is, again, right now it's in planning, so we have money to actually get this to construction readiness and have it fully permitted, which we expect to have in about 1 year. And this will be removing concrete from the channel, turning it into a natural waterway, building a trail along there, and doing a lot of the same sorts of things that we're doing at Federal Boulevard. Another image, so that'll be on the South Fork of the Troyes Creek. Ozzy mentioned that we'd come back to this one, the floodable park. So this is one of the really interesting opportunities, I think, especially in a place like San Diego where the rain is so infrequent. Basically, a floodable park, just to sort of reiterate what Ozzy said, is a park that's a normal park that's built a lot lower than it normally would be. So in a place like San Diego, almost every day of the year, it would function like a normal park. But in the case of extreme rain events, it's creating a safe place for water to go, to collect temporarily, and then actually go through cleaning the water before it sort of drains out into the creek and eventually the bay. This is a space that we've been working on with community members. We're sort of touching on different levels of development that we're at with these projects. This one is very much a concept still. It's not getting any formal planning yet. It's sort of a very complicated project. But the Southeastern San Diego Community Plan identified this space as an opportunity for a public park. Right now, the image, you can see there's a lot happening on it. The primary space that's circled is a tow lot. And the Troyes Creek, can you show Ozzy where the Troyes Creek is? Runs right through the middle of this. We are now, this is Logan Heights. We're at the foot of the watershed. We have pictures of this area flooding. You can imagine anytime it rains, all of this stuff from these cars is going directly into the creek, which is very close to the bay at this point. There are other sorts of businesses here too, but we've been working with community members who have really been starting to get excited about the idea of having this not only become a public green space, but also one that can make their neighborhood a safer space. This is one Ozzy and I have been really working on, so I'm sort of keeping myself from getting too stuck in the weeds on it, but there's a lot more we could say about some of the opportunities here.
Literally and figuratively, stuck in the weeds on this.
Yeah. Knee deep. Ocean View Boulevard is a good example of potential green street with sort of a small win with still more opportunity for growth. We do, as I mentioned, a resident empowerment training where we work with 20 different residents for 4 months, helping them sort of understand all of the stuff that I've talked about today, starting with understanding their neighborhood to moving into understanding blue-green infrastructure solutions. And they choose projects that they come up with a concept plan for. So 2 years ago, the first cohort we did chose a stretch of Ocean View Boulevard, and their concept plan is on the right here. And they had said, we want to see trees here, and we want to see rain gardens here, and permeable pavement and things like that. And it ended up coinciding perfectly with the city's tree planting program, where they were going to be heading into the Mountain View neighborhood to plant trees. And we were able to reach out and say, hey, we have residents that are already excited about seeing Ocean View Boulevard change. And they actually went out and we walked the street together and looked at where the opportunities were for planting trees. So we still want to see the rain gardens and permeable pavement, but at least was a start, and ended up being very empowering for the residents to feel like some of the things that they had imagined were able to be implemented. There's Ocean View Boulevard. And then the point is, I'm not going to go through these, but these are other sites where Groundwork is working on projects that have sort of similar scope. So again, trying to really understand the multiplicative effect of these projects, that as the more that are happening, the more they start to have compounding effects in terms of making neighborhoods safer, but also more beautiful places to live, work, and play. And then this is an image that just sort of envisions all of the potential green space that could emerge as we start to enact some of these projects in different places. The last thing I'll just mention, I think, am I doing okay with time? Do we have like a couple more minutes?
Yes.
I love that you had to unmute for the yes, thank you. So one of the things that we were invited here to share about was what we call our Choice Blue Green Collaborative. And this has been a group that we've convened quarterly for the last 2 years. And it's brought together the residents who have participated in our resident empowerment training and learned about all of these different topics. But it's also brought together key stakeholders from different city departments, from regional agencies, from other sorts of even a couple private companies. And it's been a group of what, 40 to 50, 40 to 60, something like that each time. And each table is intentionally set up to have different people representing different interests at the table. And we started out at a high level. What would it look like to have a blue-green vision for the whole watershed, where we started to interpret the opportunities we saw through a multi-benefit framework. So we moved away from just, hey, this street needs to be repaved, but moved into this street needs to be repaved. What are the opportunities for rain gardens or trees or other sorts of these things too? And as we've progressed, we move now to actually starting to focus on real projects. And so it's been really fascinating to see that each person really does bring expertise, including residents, which is oftentimes, I think, overlooked. As I've talked with city department employees afterwards and sort of asked them about their experiences, they've consistently said that they've never been able to work with residents in quite this way before, because a lot of times it's in meetings like this where you're sort of talking at community members and it's a more formal, whatever, monologue or dialogue. So this was just one example of an imagined map of what this watershed could look like as we start to realize things like green streets and green alleys and green schoolyards and stream bed bioengineering and all of these sorts of different things across the watershed. And so just wanted to close with that sort of aspirational vision of what it could be. And the other piece that I would just mention is the red lines representing active transportation pathways. So all of this also corresponds with active transportation opportunities like our Federal Boulevard project or our Jackie Robinson YMCA, where there's a trail component that's going to eventually sort of connect all of these communities that have been divided by transportation infrastructure. Do we have people online or no? Are there people in the Zoom meeting?
There are a few people in the Zoom meeting.
Okay.
We would first go to board member questions, then we would take any public comment and then go into board member discussion.
I'll just let Ozzy in like 60 seconds talk about some of the opportunities if residents want to get involved in our work. But then we'll, take questions.
So we have different programs that we continue to engage with the residents. So for instance, planting trees, we have a tree planting program for private residences, so people can sign up and we actually go out to your home. And we also do, as Thad mentioned earlier, resident empowerment training. So we work directly with the residents and then continue them after they finish the training. So sometimes even place them or get them in contact with their community planning groups and things like that. So we work with the advocate portion of that. So we have some residents that say, hey, we actually want a trail to connect to this location, then we do that as well. Even when sometimes there's some things that go against what we stand for, we also figure out how to make that happen with regards to promoting our blue and green infrastructure and projects.
Just a final watershed image again. So.
Oh yeah, so this final watershed image. So you guys have an idea of what we cover. Cool. And then now we're opening it up to any questions. Is there contact information? If you guys have any follow-up questions even after this presentation.
Great, thank you. First, we'll open it up to any board member comments board member questions. Board member Morgan.
I just want to thank you for coming. I had the pleasure to work with Groundworks a number of years ago with Leslie Reynolds. I hope to convey our great thanks to all of you and that team for what you're doing. I do have a lot of questions, which had to do with organizational partners. You have identified some of them in terms of city departments. And so that's great. I'm interested in what nonprofits are also involved, particularly statewide organizations. that might be in a position to help you do the fundraising necessary here. So that's my big question, and then I'll stop and give other people a chance. But what are the funding sources for these projects?
Those are sort of two different questions. I can speak first to the partner, the CBO, the community based organization partners. San Diego Canyonlands is one of our closest partners. We share office space with them. We work with Urban Collaborative Project. We work with Logan Heights CDC. We work with Mundo Gardens. We work with the Western Service Workers Association. We Partnership for the Advancement of New Americans, PANA. I know I'm leaving some out. I mean, we just sent a budget advocacy letter out yesterday to like 50 different partner organizations. So we're pretty much just immersed in the ecosystem of environmental justice organizations in San Diego. In terms of funding, the bulk of our funding, particularly for infrastructure projects, comes from state agencies. The Department of Natural Resources being the largest one, the Wildlife Conservation Board, which is, I think, a subset of the Department of Natural Resources. Those are ones that have funded like the creek dechannelization projects, the really large scale ones. We also have other sorts of grants from foundations. I think, you know, at this moment in time, I think we have like 25 or 30 different sources of grant funding. So it's a pretty wide scale. Or a wide range, yeah.
Hey, thank you very much for that great representation. I very much think about the world from a watershed perspective. I had two questions. One of them was kind of building off of Erica's question about local planning scale. And if you guys can talk about what is easy or doesn't work in terms of reaching out to all of those communities or on point for today, the town councils or the planning groups that don't match the watershed at all, the watershed boundary. You guys had your map cut out of La Mesa and, Lemon Grove, which this map over here includes a little bit, at least from a watershed perspective. So just curious about whether it works and how, if you have advice on how it could work a little bit better to plan at a watershed scale when the municipal scale doesn't really match. So yeah,
Let me try. Yeah, that's a big question. I love that. I love the question in the way you're thinking about it. In the resident empowerment training, I have a map that superimposes the community planning groups on the watershed and sort of makes the exact point that you're making, that these things do not line up. And so what does it mean to try to sort of build a watershed consciousness where we understand that the things we do impact each other? The focusing on the city of San Diego is just a practical decision. It's hard enough to figure out how to navigate all the bureaucratic realities of the city of San Diego. So it does extend into Lemon Grove and La Mesa, but that's not a area that we've really worked in. The community planning groups are one of the key partners that we have and that we work with. I mean, we have an intern who's supporting the Choice Valley Community Planning Group tonight. We attend all of the meetings and have helped them build websites and try to engage more people who do our resident empowerment training. We try to send to the community planning group if it's something that interests them, because we really do see that as an important body. I feel like the challenges, we could talk for a long time just about how difficult it is to, particularly in disinvested communities, get people to really bring out the masses to participate in these sorts of efforts. It's really hard work. It takes long sustained relationships and a lot of different creative attempts. I mean, Ozzy can talk a little bit about some of the projects that we've been doing where we've been trying to think more creatively about like inviting people to participate in planning for projects and actually sort of tie it into like a community, a cleanup of the site. And while we're cleaning it up, we're talking about what this space could look like. I said, I'm going to let you talk about it. And then I started giving your talking points. But so we've been trying to move into what we call sort of community activation of sites, which we're trying to work in parallel with community planning. Because planning is something that people are tired of, that they've participated in and haven't seen go anywhere. And so really trying to figure out what the short-term wins are to get people to not only, you know, weigh in and help to contribute to what their community will look like, but also start to take ownership over it too. Ozzy is our community partnerships person, so I should really let him speak.
I'll quickly add to that response is that we've also worked with the council members' offices. Think of like the boots on the ground approach, right? The community planning groups are there, but also you have all the town councils, you have the community, the neighborhood groups as well. So we've reached out to those leaders, asking for their opinion and how we integrate some of these things. I have a background in planning and engineering myself, and you know how many times I've gone to a community meeting and some of the responses is like, well, what do I care about this? It's not going to be built. I'm going to die before this thing is built. So we've taken a community-driven approach to do what's called a phase one community activation, where there is a parcel that, okay, it's imagined in a community plan that may take 15 years to build. It might take Sandig or Caltrans 15, 20 years to build. So what we do is we've been figuring out how to activate that. The floodable park was one of the examples that Thad mentioned. So what we did is we did a cleanup and community envisioning session for that parcel, then started to actually activate it. Work with the community partners, with the city leaders, with the council members to actually support that activation of that parcel. Think of it of something that's more tangible. It makes the residents actually more involved in it. They know they weren't just part of this envisioning thing that's going to happen in 15 years, but it's something that they actually did this month. And now 2 months later, their communities are actually able to use this space. So we're figuring out how that works with the government itself, permitting, whatever we need, a right of entry, right of way permits and stuff like that. So we can phase that approach to be more tangible in the near term than just a pretty picture in 15, 20 years.
Let me add one other thing. I feel like the other side of working with residents is also trying to understand how to work with local government and be the sort of facilitator between those, sometimes at odds or at least not always understanding each other entities. And so this would be like Ozzy mentioned, residents come to us with project ideas and trying to help them sort of understand what the avenues are for them to advocate for that project, or we're trying to do parcel lookups or reaching out to Parks and Rec ourselves and saying, what's going on here and what would this take to try to do something? And that's where I don't know, I don't know exactly what the purpose of this group is and whether or not you're here to help us, or, you know, we're supposed to just say good things about the city, but you know, it's challenging because our cities, not just San Diego, but San Diego is not built to think from a multi-benefit framework. We're built to think about transportation projects, and we're built to think, you know, about sort of single lane projects. And now the things that we're working on are bringing together stormwater implications and Parks and Rec and transportation, and Caltrans is somehow you know, a part of it. And so that's a lot of different things for a resident to try to, you know, understand. And so I think Groundwork tries to really take the lead on decoding some of these things and being persistent and coming back to the table and trying to sort of push these things forward. And we're always looking for more help to figure out how to make these things more efficient. Sometimes, you know, we did a restoration project on a city-owned parcel that was a tiny little parcel. I don't even know, probably like an eighth of an acre or something. It was at the entryway to a community. They wanted to see it. There were dead trees and dead plants. They wanted to see those removed and new vegetation put in. And it took us a year and a half and $40,000 in like permitting costs in order to remove some dead trees and plant new trees. You know, so the challenges are really real too. And so trying to be persistent and figure those out, but also asking people, you know, for help on behalf of the community too.
Thank you. We did lose two of our public commenters, and so I am going to make a call for public comment if the person that's logged in would like to comment. Please raise your hand or press *9 now.
I just wanted to say thanks. Great job.
Thanks. I think that was Sally. Oh, it was Sally. I see the name. Thanks, Sally. I
Okay.
recognize your voice.
Great, thank you. With that, we will go ahead and move on to any additional board member comments or questions.
I have another one.
We got the watershed guy with all the questions. I love it.
I just want, so my day job is working with the San Diego Bird Alliance.
Oh, beautiful.
And I wanted to ask and then prod about the habitat value to all the projects that you're talking about. And see if you, not really quantification, but just see if there's interest from the community or interest from you all back to the community about connecting these streams from a habitat perspective, aquatic habitat for birds or any other kind of wildlife. And,
Yeah.
and the planting that you do that you were talking about, I know there's all kinds of complications in planting native street trees, but a lot of the spaces that you're showing are way more than just street trees. And I'm
Right.
just wondering what your all plan is for the habitat value of the places you're restoring.
For sure. The letter I just mentioned was co-authored with the Bird Alliance, so somebody at your org
Oh,
helped
yes,
to
yes.
make it happen, so thanks.
Yeah.
San Diego Canyonlands, like I mentioned, is our closest working partner, and admittedly, we do lean on them a lot for education about conservation and appropriateness of certain species and what birds are living where and all of these sorts of things. I think, as I mentioned, the idea of multi-benefit solutions, conservation and biodiversity is one of those benefits that fits within the scope of these sorts of projects. The canyons are critical to this whole watershed, and those become, I mean, at this point, I feel like I'm speaking to somebody who obviously knows this stuff, but like there's species of birds that only live in those canyons. And so there's huge opportunities to, as a part of these projects, create more space for these different creatures and plants and all of that to thrive. I think some of the more practical ways that we think about it, just a couple things. One of them is, as I mentioned, active transportation is a big part of what we're trying to do. However, how do we think about active transportation and the need for that for reasons of air quality and access for people and safe traveling and all of this, but also think about protecting the canyons. Because if you're going through there with e-bikes at 25 miles an hour, there's erosion that's contributing to worse flooding, but it's also disrupting sensitive species and things like that. And so with Canyonlands and with the landscape architect, Vicky Estrada, who's the president of our board, we've been coming up with actually some proposed solutions about at the rims of canyons, moving active transportation opportunities that sort of move along the rims of the canyon and avoid disruption of sensitive habitats, but then keeping passive transportation trails for hiking and things like that through the canyons. The other thing I would mention is we're working on an interesting project with Canyonlands funded by the Resources Legacy Fund that's working on a trail loop system for the Emerald Hills, Radio, and Encanto canyons, which we're sort of sitting in the middle of right now. And it's about access and figuring out how to create some restoration and make it a safe place that's enjoyable for people to go. And Groundwork's really going to be working with the school that's here and with the residents. But the project itself is based on sort of a hypothesis that I think is really interesting. That is, does creating more access to nature help and promote conservation and biodiversity? Because the easiest way to think about it is a lot of times people are like, keep people out and that's how we save the biodiversity. But by actually bringing people in to canyons within their neighborhoods, are we building more care for these spaces and a deeper desire to see them preserved and restored and all of that kind of stuff? And so that project, we just like had our kickoff meeting 2 weeks ago, or maybe it was even last week, in one of the canyons. So those are just sort of my rambling thoughts about how conservation and biodiversity fit within all of this.
I'll just make a quick comment because you asked earlier, you're not really sure what our group does and if we're here to help. I mean, I think our
I
intent.
could have worded it a little better, sorry.
Our intent is to be able to help. I mean, at its core, we're here to help advise and make recommendations to the city council related to things. We have chosen stormwater really as our topic of conversation. We have several items in our work program throughout the year, including presentations from the stormwater department, I believe at our next month's meeting. But if there's ever any specific questions or asks, you are welcome to participate and reach back out and attend our future meetings.
Excellent, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Okay, so. What? So my recommendation on how to move forward, given that we only have one agenda item, but, sorry, one member of the public logged in at this point, is that we do proceed with item 8A. We are ready for that. We are recording it. I think it'll be helpful for the future as at least a practice. And then we conclude with any additional public comment items, but that we do continue the community listening session until a future item. I do have some comments on proposed agenda items for future meetings with a recommendation on how to proceed with that I'll comment on at that point. I don't think we need a motion if there's no motions against that. I don't, if you're willing and ready, let's go ahead and go with item 8A.
Do we need a motion to postpone part C? I agree with you, but we will get to that after this.
Let's get into that after this.
Great. Well, I am happy to oblige with item 8A. Julia? Whichever works for you.
And did we lose the screen share?
All right. Okay, so my name's Andrew Meyer. Nice to meet you all. I'm the vice chair of the Resiliency Advisory Board at the City of San Diego. And I'm going to give a presentation in item 8A on the board, on the agenda, talking about what the Resiliency Advisory Board does, why we do that, and what we hope to become as we mature. To Ozzy and Thad, thanks very much for your presentation. This is definitely communal work that we put into here. A lot of the slides came from council, our committee member, Cynthia. So thank you very much, Cynthia. I put them together in a couple of ways and added a little bit more about what our work plan for the coming year includes, which Chair Lardy also alluded to, its focus on stormwater. So thanks to the Malcolm X Library for hosting us, and thanks to everybody who's been here, and definitely including the presenters. And if the last slide that I have is all about getting in touch with the Resiliency Advisory Board, when our general meetings are, where they are, and how to find out more information about us. So if you want to get in touch with us after this meeting, please do, and the information's on the last slide. So the Resiliency Advisory Board has 11 members, or has 11 seats. 9 are filled, and there are 3 vacancies. So we're still looking for committee members from District 4, 8, and 9, 7, 4, 8, and 7. Or you're 7. 4, 8, and 4, 5, and 8. 4, 5, and 8. What are your favorite numbers? District 4, 5, and 8 are not represented on the Resiliency Advisory Board, despite our city staff members and all of our best efforts. We're still looking for community members to represent those communities and get their concerns, their input, their expertise into the Resiliency Advisory Board. Our mandate is direct from the enabling legislation that brought us here to advise the mayor. And again, Chair Lardy kind of mentioned this already on the record, but the Resiliency Advisory Board needs to advise the mayor, city council, and relevant departments on the policies and strategies that enhance San Diego's resilience to climate-related hazards. The board supports initiatives such as the Climate Resilient SD Plan, Biodiverse SD, and the Climate Action Plan, particularly Strategy 5, and we focus on resilient infrastructure and healthy ecosystems. So that is what we as a board do, the advisory board, is specifically get information to city staff and the mayor and council about how to bring about those programs, how to realize those programs as volunteers to the city with expertise from our local geography and our and our careers. The resilient idea, or the idea for this board was from 2021. The board and was established in 2023, and the inaugural board appointed in August of 2024. So we are almost into or halfway into our second full year as a board. There were other boards that did some of these same kinds of things, but only pieces of it. So in 2023, this board, the Climate Advisory Board, and the Forestry Advisory Board, is that what still exists? Those boards, that board still exists. These boards came about to take the place and broaden the city's volunteer input and advisory board input to really deal with the resiliency and the action needed in order to fight the climate crisis, following on from a lot of the city's leadership from the Climate Action Plan and other documents that the city has put out there. So our scope is, again, from these slides that were given to City Council a couple of years ago, is to review issues involving all of these things. I won't go through them individually, but a lot of these bullets here are the things that we've been talking about from a board perspective for the last 12 months in 2025 and the first 4 or 5 months in 2026. We've had presentations, we've had reports, we've had information shared with us that we then can share with city staff and city council and mayor's offices. It deals with a lot of the resiliency of the humans and the habitats that support the city of San Diego. In 2025, we focused on establishing the board and getting a lot of processes to enable us to do this work under leadership of Chair Harris. We established these goals. So last year, I've got a couple of slides about what we have done by the end of 2025, but these were the goals that we were looking for. Primary goal of the climate resilience and biodiversity related plans and regulations and initiatives. So those ones in particular, advise the mayor and city council on those ones which existed at the time that the board was created. And our goals, our priority goals, were strong foundation for the board itself. So a lot of internal governance kind of components, bylaws, vacancies and those kinds of things, and a specific focus on wildfire resilience and community response to wildfires in the city of San Diego. So we came up with, I won't go through these in detail either. I highlighted some of the things to help kind of word search and pull out the important points. But these and the next few slides are the recommendations that the Resiliency Advisory Board gave to the Environment Committee at the City of San Diego at the end of 2025. And it's about the information that we received from experts and that we put in on how the city could bring about better resilience to wildfires in our communities, especially the wildfire-prone communities in the city of San Diego. So there's wildfire resilience recommendations. We also heard a lot of information, especially from staff member Chase, who led this project, about the Coastal Resilience Master Plan. So we had 2 recommendations about how to bring about that plan as best as possible. We had a recommendation about funding natural resource management plans also. And we had a general recommendation about infrastructure resiliency and bringing it into the design and maintenance of city standards and guidelines. So improving the baseline expectation of the city's design standards for resiliency. Our 2026 priorities, which were decided on and talked about from subcommittees and full committees and also in previous meetings at the end of 2025 and adopted in early 2026 are, as Chair Lardy mentioned, this year we're going to focus on stormwater management and response, especially in response to actions and natural disasters that have happened in Chollas Creek and other parts of San Diego. It's something that the city needs a lot of help on. The city is asking for a lot of help in order to figure out how to partner with communities, partner with experts, and design a better stormwater management system and then fund it. We are also still working on our board processes and accountability, especially filling the seats that are vacant. And one of those priority goals that we talked about last year, our resiliency topics are kind of one month at a time resiliency foci that are not this priority goal of stormwater management. So already this year, we've talked about 3 or 4 of those. And in our work plan, which is on our website,
you can see the resiliency topics that are beyond stormwater management that we'll deal with in the coming months as well. So last slide, scan this QR code if you want to be directed directly to our website and find out more information about our meeting minutes and agendas and coming and the work plan with the coming schedules for the next few months and the rest of the year. Here's our contact information for the Resiliency Board. And again, if you want to apply, or not again, but if you would like to apply in any of those districts that we don't have a current seated Resiliency Advisory Board member, that's your direct link for getting information about how to nominate yourself or get nominated and talk with your council member in order to be seated on the board. And we, just for everybody who's listening at home, we meet on the third Thursday at 1 p.m. at Civic Center Plaza, 3rd floor, 3rd Avenue at the 4th floor, usually, except when we are able to do in-person meetings in the community like this. This one, we had to schedule around the library and around our staff and our afternoons and our evenings and those kinds of things. So this meeting doesn't fit our normal schedule, but normally it's Thursdays at 1 p.m. once a month. That's it for me. Ian, you have questions? Yeah. No, we all have, if you have any questions, Ozzy and Thad or anybody online, we all could answer these for sure, but that is my first opportunity to give an overview of what our board does, although we certainly have talked about it and worked on it for over 1.5 years already. So this is a representation for sure of what the board has already put into the work that we've done.
Thank you. For this one, let's just go to any public comment first, and then we'll do questions and comments after that. So for those online or in person, if you have any public comments, please signify by raising your hand or raising your hand online. Okay, we do have one hand raised. So we'll go ahead and go to Sally. Go ahead and please unmute and provide your comment.
Thank you. You did a fine job. I'm grateful that you were looking at stormwater this year because our neighborhoods need help. I'm a D4 resident, but I'm not very consistent. So I will pass the word along regarding getting somebody in from our area, and I'll attend meetings when I'm good. Unfortunately, third Thursdays is a busy one because Park and Rec meets at 2.
Speaking to the mic, but they should be able to hear you.
I just wanted to say that it's worth checking the website for the Resiliency Advisory Board because it's not always the 3rd Thursday. So there might be some months that you are able to join. So just check that if you're interested in joining.
Thank you for that comment. And just because it took us a minute to get to it, to reiterate, there's currently the District 5 member vacancy, the District 4 member vacancy, and the District 9 member vacancy. Thanks. All right, are there any comments, questions on this item? Go ahead. Yeah. Do you want to take that one or go? So I guess we're a new committee and we're working on our program. Our first work program was focused on fire. And so we did not attempt to do any specific community engagement. This was our first attempt at community engagement. And I think we'll discuss on some improvements for it. I think we would be interested in any help and opportunity, at the very least, getting the word out and specific opportunities and any groups that might be interested in either participating or presenting to us. And then obviously attendance at all of our meetings, which are a form of community engagement, where we have had members of the public come and present on a variety of topics. Can someone speak to that? I think there was flyers and some postings. Board member Doc.
Yeah, I can briefly speak to that. We did some light board member recruitment last year as well. Board Member Harris, Meyer and I, did some light campaigning and outreach to, I believe it was nonprofit CBOs in the respective districts that we were recruiting for, to try to get some interest in board, recruitment.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Board Member Harris? Great, thank you. Okay. Board Member Lampitt.
Just want to say for the record that Andrew did a great job presenting. Let it be known.
Great. So I guess I'd open up to discussion, on item number 8C. We're concluding, we're almost getting next to our scheduled items because we don't have any action items. Our original thought was to have a specific community listening session that's separate from the non-agenda public comment because we could potentially discuss and take actions related to those. I do not think it hurts to make a call for if there's any public comments related to this item. And then we could go ahead and conclude with the rest of our business.
Agenda public, or you want a public comment?
Well, we need to either continue or dispose of items 8C, and then we do still need to do non-agenda public comment.
Can I just add something then if we're still on 8A? Or you've been talking about 8C? It's just to emphasize that this is a little bit late, but that if you don't know your council district, District 4 is eastern San Diego, so it is part of the Troyes Creek watershed, and D9 is right on. D9 is just north of where we are right now, so just on the border of Lemon Grove and La Mesa, just south of Mission Valley, south of SDSU. And D5 is the far northest one that's up in San Pasqual Valley and past Kearney Mesa and those areas. So if those are the geographies of those spaces that we do not currently have representation from.
Thank you.
Yep.
I would just add that D5 is also Rancho Bernardo, parts of PQ, Mira Mesa, or not Mira Mesa, parts of PQ. So very large neighborhoods up there. So hopefully we can pull somebody.
Are there? Valuable to get if there's a overlapping space. If they decide to watch the recording and have some comments or ideas, is there a way for them to submit them, or do they need to have them?
Any comments can be submitted to us in writing. We have received a few comments in writing, through email to either myself or Julia, and then be distributed to the committee. So I think we received some on forestation and other topics. So yeah, though, any comments, they could also ask us if we'd be wanting to attend. I guess getting a little bit into, well, I have a few comments under item number 2 for proposed items for future agendas, specifically related to public outreach and recommendation forward. I guess just to move on through our agenda, I will make a motion to continue item 8C, and then we will handle any comments during non-agenda public comment and make the call there. Would Board Member Harris seconds the motion? All in favor, vote aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. We will now move on to non-agenda public comment. We do not have anyone online that is not staff or myself, so I will just say, is there any non-agenda public comment related to anything not on the agenda, but within our purview from the audience? Not seeing the audience make any sudden movements, I will say that we do not have any non-agenda public comment items. So we do not have any action items. We'll go to proposed items for future meetings. A couple things for the future meetings. I think public outreach is hard, and I think that we do not have a budget or anything related to that. I think with the room availability, it ended up that we only had a couple choices of this room being available at night. This was actually not either of our first choices. And that probably would have impacted the conflict. What I'm recommending, and I'm recommending we do it at our June meeting, because we have a pretty stacked May meeting with stormwater. I had it up, but there's 3 items: stormwater, energy, and something else. Is we add an item on what do we want to do and address for public comment, and invite city planning to come in and speak to whether that Julia or others in city planning, what are some tools and tricks and potential resources that they have to support us. That said, with public outreach, I've even had funded public outreach campaigns where we don't have a lot of people showing up to. So I think just us being here in the community is good. Obviously, the scheduling issue was not ideal. But I think we should add an agenda item, and I don't think I really need a motion because if there's general consensus, I, as the chair, can add something. Okay, two other things on this. There are other organizations that the city has. One of the community groups, it might have been a town council, actually reached out to board member Gong recently and asked to attend and coordinate on that. I think the city still has a community planning group chairs coordination meeting, and as part of that, I'd ask the city staff if it would be appropriate for somebody to give the presentation, such as you just gave to that group, to see are there any groups that would want to either invite somebody to come to the meeting or to come to our meetings and make sure they're aware that we exist as a group. So that would be my recommendation. We'll start with board member Harris and then see if there's any comments from anyone else. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yeah, and I guess I was saying I'd suggest we either request or invite ourselves to that to have some collection of the presentation we just gave. And that might be a good opportunity, as well as to share the map and the vacant seats. Okay, seeing no other comments on that. The other agenda item I was going to add to June was either report out or referral as an agenda item related to the public comments we received in February on the quarry on the conditional use permit. But then at this point, I would make a request. Is there any other agenda items, requests for future agenda items at a future meeting?
Whoa, sorry. Just a thought or clarifying question, I guess. When when the community engagement team came to speak to us last year, was that the draft plan of the community engagement plan or was that the final plan? Because I feel like if we are planning on doing outreach and community engagement and we would want recommendations from staff, it would probably go to them on like, they would be the ones to come to present to us again. So I just want to make sure we're not duplicating a presentation.
I don't recall. I don't, Julia, if you're able to speak to that.
I think it was in the middle of public comment when we had it, but I can't remember. I think maybe public comment had just closed or something. I don't remember. It wasn't draft, I remember now, because they had asked us to make public comment on that section in particular. Yeah. So I guess if we wanted to have them come in and speak particularly to that section and have more open dialogue with us about how to tailor that plan into our outreach, I think that would be a good agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other proposed future item? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and move on to adjournment at 7:28. Right on time.